The Crystal Spire Restaurant floated 300 stories above Neo Angeles, its transparent walls offering breathtaking views of the sprawling megacity below. Tonight, 3 artificial moons cast silver light through the dome ceiling, creating perfect ambience for romance. Unfortunately, romance seemed to be the last thing happening at table 17. Jasper Chen adjusted his collar for the 5th time, checking his watch again. 47 minutes late. His date had officially stood him up. The waiter, a polite android with glowing blue circuits, approached with practiced discretion. "Another mineral water, sir?" "Just the check, please," Jasper sighed, running his fingers through his dark hair. "I think it's safe to say she's not coming." As a systems engineer specializing in biomechanical integration, Jasper was used to solving complex problems. Unfortunately, his dating life presented challenges that no amount of technical expertise could fix. His friend David had insisted the compatibility algorithm was flawless, but 3 failed dates this month suggested otherwise. Across the restaurant, at the premium table near the observation deck, Queen Zephyra of the Crystal Dominions was experiencing her own romantic disaster. The Dragon Queen sat regally in her specialized mobility throne, its crystalline surface reflecting her deep emerald scales. Her wings, folded elegantly behind the chair, shimmered with an opalescent sheen that caught the moonlight. Duke Valerian, her arranged dinner companion, had spent the last 20 minutes explaining why her condition made her unsuitable for producing heirs. His golden scales rippled with what he probably thought was diplomatic concern. "Your Majesty must understand," Duke Valerian continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "The nobility expects certain standards. Your unfortunate accident has left you, well, diminished in the eyes of many potential alliance partners." Zephyra's amber eyes flashed with controlled anger. "My accident left me paralyzed from the lower spine, Duke Valerian. It did not affect my intelligence, my magical abilities, or my capacity to rule 15 star systems effectively." Her mobility throne, a masterpiece of dragon engineering, responded to her neural impulses and emotional state. The biocrystalline interface woven throughout the chair's frame pulsed with soft light, making it appear less like medical equipment and more like an extension of her powerful presence. "Of course, Your Majesty, but surely you understand that appearances matter in politics. The other houses expect their queen to be, how shall I put this delicately, complete." "Complete?" Zephyra's voice carried the kind of authority that had once commanded armies. "I have successfully negotiated 3 peace treaties this year, expanded our trade routes by 40%, and personally designed the new agricultural systems that ended famine on 6 worlds. If that isn't complete enough for your house, Duke Valerian, then your house lacks vision." The Duke's wings flared slightly in indignation. "Your Majesty, you misunderstand my intentions. House Valerian offers generous terms for alliance. Our medical facilities could potentially help with your condition, and our palace has been modified for accessibility. You would want for nothing." "Accept respect," Zephyr replied coldly. "Accept the basic dignity of being seen as a person rather than a political asset requiring modification." As Duke Valerian rose to leave, muttering about ungrateful queens and missed opportunities, he knocked into Jasper, who was heading toward the exit. The collision sent Jasper stumbling sideways, and he caught himself against the edge of table 12. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interfere," Jasper said, steadying himself. He looked up to see the Dragon Queen watching him with curious amber eyes. Her scales shifted from deep emerald to lighter jade in the restaurant's ambient lighting, and despite her obvious royal bearing, there was something tired and frustrated in her expression that he recognized all too well. "Rough evening?" he asked before his brain could stop his mouth. Zephyra studied the human more carefully. He was average height, with kind brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, wearing what was clearly his best shirt. Though it had a small stain near the pocket, he probably hadn't noticed. His hands showed the calluses of someone who worked with tools and machinery, and his slightly disheveled appearance suggested genuine frustration rather than calculated charm. "Failed romantic engagement," she replied with dry humor. "You?" "Same story, different table," Jasper said with a rueful smile. "Though in my case, she didn't even show up, which is probably better than showing up and spending the evening explaining why I'm unsuitable marriage material." Zephyrah felt her mouth curve into what might have been her first genuine smile in weeks. "At least your date saved you the cost of an expensive meal. Mine ordered the premium crystal fruit before explaining why I'm defective merchandise." Jasper's expression darkened. Anyone who would say something like that is the defective one. That's just cruel and ignorant. Careful, human. Defending a queen's honor could be considered treason in some systems. Good thing we're in Neo Angeles then. Here, it's just called basic human decency. They looked at each other for a moment, and Zephyrah found herself genuinely curious about this straightforward human engineer who didn't seem intimidated by her status or put off by her chair. "Chen," he said, extending his hand. "Systems engineer, specializing in biomechanical integration," currently stood up and apparently interrupting royal sulking. "Zephyrah of the Fourth Brood, Queen of the Crystal Dominions, Protector of 15 star systems, and currently abandoned at Table 12. She accepted his handshake, noting how he didn't flinch at the texture of her scales or the strength of her grip. "Would you like some company?" Jasper asked. "I mean, I've already paid the cover charge, and it seems wasteful for two people to sit alone when they could sit alone together. That's the most illogical reasoning I've heard all evening," Zephyrah said with amusement. Which, considering Duke Valerian just tried to explain dragon genetics to me, is quite an accomplishment. "Yes, you may join me." Jasper moved to her table, and they ordered actual food this time. He chose the house stir-fry, while she selected something that looked like glowing pasta, but smelled surprisingly like vanilla and starlight. "So," Jasper said after the waiter left, "systems engineer to queen. That's quite a career gap. How does one become a queen? Exactly. Inheritance or application process?" "Inheritance, unfortunately. Though after 5 years of it, I sometimes think an application process would screen out unsuitable candidates like myself." "Unsuitable how?" Zephyrah gestured toward her chair. "Queens are supposed to project strength and inspire confidence. Difficult to do when you need assistance reaching high shelves." Jasper considered this seriously. "I don't know about that. Managing 15 star systems from a mobility throne probably takes more real strength than doing it with working legs. It's like in engineering when you have constraints that force creative solutions. Usually, you end up with more elegant systems than if you had unlimited resources." "Are you comparing me to an engineering project?" "I'm comparing you to innovative problem-solving under challenging conditions." "Completely different thing." Zephyrah laughed, a sound like silver bells in a gentle breeze. "You're either very brave or completely foolish, Jasper Chen. Systems engineer," he reminded her with a grin. "The job requires both qualities in equal measure." Their conversation flowed naturally as they ate. Jasper told her about the challenges of designing integration systems for her species whose biology actively rejected foreign technology. Zephyrah shared stories about mediating disputes between worlds that couldn't agree on basic concepts like time, measurement, or what constituted acceptable tribute. "Last month," she said, cutting into her glowing pasta with precise movements, "the Mineral Consortium sent me 40 tons of processed uranium as a congratulatory gift." "Congratulations for what?" "My coronation anniversary." Apparently, they'd heard rumors about my council's matchmaking efforts and wanted to curry favor early. She paused. "They also seem to believe dragons eat radioactive materials. Do you?" "Mostly standard proteins and minerals. The glowing food is just for special occasions or particularly irritating dates." She looked at him thoughtfully. This doesn't count as a date, does it? Definitely not, Jasper agreed quickly. This is two people who got stood up commiserating over overpriced food. Completely different social contract. Good. I've reached my quota of disastrous romantic encounters for the month. They talked through 3 courses and dessert, a remarkable confection that looked like a miniature nebula, complete with swirling colors and tiny edible stars. Neither brought up the obvious differences between them, though Jasper found himself genuinely fascinated by Sapphira's mobility throne from an engineering perspective. Finally, as the restaurant began dimming its lights, Zephyra addressed the unspoken question. Aren't you curious about how it happened? Most humans I meet want the story within 5 minutes. Jasper set down his spoon thoughtfully. If you wanted to tell me, you would. Besides, it doesn't really change anything about this conversation, does it? You're here, we're talking, and this is infinitely better than the evening either of us planned. Mining accident, Zephyra said simply. 3 years ago on Kepler Station. Seismic event triggered a cascade failure in the trilithium mines. 24 dead, dozens injured. My security detail got me out, but not before falling debris crushed my spine. I'm sorry that happened. Don't be. It happened. I adapted. I survived. Though I admit the social aspects have been more challenging than the physical ones. The waiter approached with subtle timing, presenting the check in a way that suggested the restaurant was ready to close. Jasper insisted on splitting the bill, which led to a brief argument about royal protocol versus equal treatment that ended with them dividing. The cost, despite Zephyra's protests, as they moved toward the exit, her throne gliding silently beside his slightly uneven gait. They reached that awkward moment where strangers who had shared too much honesty had to decide what came next. This was. Zephyra began carefully. Unexpected. Unexpectedly good, Jasper added. I was going to say the same thing. They stood by the elevator banks, that familiar tension of endings and beginnings. I should probably mention, Jasper said, that I'm supposed to leave tomorrow for a 6-month contract on Europa Station. New integration systems for their terraforming operation. And I should mention that my council has scheduled 14 more potential suitors over the next month, each more politically advantageous than the last. Sounds like we both have busy schedules ahead. Very busy. Zephyra agreed. They looked at each other, and Jasper suddenly laughed. This is ridiculous. We're acting like this was actually a date, when we specifically established it wasn't. Completely absurd, Zephyra said, her eyes twinkling. Though, would you be interested in not having another date tomorrow before you leave? There's a technology exposition at the convention center. Purely educational. Absolutely not romantic. I could probably manage some non-romantic educational viewing, Jasper said. What time should I not meet you? 10 o'clock at the main entrance. The one with the definitely not romantic fountain display. As the elevator arrived, they exchanged contact information with the careful casualness of people trying not to seem too eager. When the doors closed between them, both were smiling despite themselves. Neither suspected that their failed blind dates had just set in motion events that would reshape both their worlds. Next morning arrived with Neo Angeles bathed in golden, sunlight streaming through the city's atmospheric filters. Jasper stood at the convention center's main entrance at exactly 9:45, watching the elaborate fountain display cycle through its programmed patterns. Water danced in impossible spirals, defying gravity through carefully hidden anti-grav generators. Queen Zephyra arrived precisely at 10, because punctuality was apparently a royal virtue. Her mobility throne had been reconfigured overnight, now sporting deep purple crystalline panels that complemented her emerald scales perfectly. She wore more casual attire than the formal dress from dinner, though on a dragon queen, casual still meant elegantly tailored and subtly expensive. You're early, she observed as her throne glided to a stop beside him. So are you. I thought royalty was fashionably late by default. Common misconception. Everyone else is simply behind schedule. Her amber eyes held traces of amusement. Shall we proceed with our definitely not romantic educational experience? The technology exposition sprawled across 12 massive halls, each dedicated to different aspects of interstellar innovation. Vendors from dozens of worlds displayed everything from quantum computers the size of pinheads to biological processors that grew like coral reefs. Jasper moved through the displays with obvious excitement, explaining principles and applications with the enthusiasm of someone truly passionate about their field. Zephyra found herself genuinely fascinated, not just by the technology, but by Jasper's ability to make complex concepts accessible. When they paused at a display of neural interface prototypes, she asked questions that revealed her own technical knowledge was far more sophisticated than most royalty bothered to develop. Most queens I've encountered, Jasper said as they examined a biosynthetic material that shifted colors based on neural input, wouldn't know a quantum processor from a protein synthesizer. Most engineers I've met wouldn't know diplomatic protocol from a dinner party invitation, Zephyr replied smoothly. Though I notice you didn't deny the processor identification thing. I absolutely know what a quantum processor is, Jasper said with mock indignation. It's the device that processes quantum information through superposition and entanglement principles. Textbook definition. Very impressive. She tapped his arm lightly with the edge of her wing, a gesture that felt surprisingly playful. Jasper noticed how her wing movement was perfectly controlled despite her spinal injury, the powerful muscles above the damage compensating with elegant precision. Careful with the royal corrections, or I might have you arrested for educational harassment. Can't arrest me. I'm leaving for Europa Station tonight, remember? You'd have to file extradition paperwork, and that could take months. The mention of his departure cast a subtle shadow over their conversation. They continued through the exposition, but there was now an underlying awareness of limited time that hadn't existed the night before. At a display of adaptive architecture, they encountered Advisor Morgrim, Zephyr's chief counsel, accompanied by 2 members of her security detail. The elderly dragon's silver scales reflected his advanced age, and his expression upon seeing the queen with a human companion was carefully neutral in the way that suggested internal alarm. Your Majesty, Morgrim said with a formal bow, I was not aware you planned to attend the exposition today. Spontaneous educational opportunity, Advisor Morgrim. Allow me to introduce Jasper Chen, systems engineer specializing in biomechanical integration. Zephyr's tone remained regal, but carried a subtle warning about acceptable behavior. Jasper extended his hand, which Morgrim accepted with the kind of handshake that conveyed polite reservation. Mr. Chen, I trust you find our technology displays informative. Very much so. Queen Zephyra has been providing insights into how these systems might integrate with existing infrastructure across the Crystal Dominions. Her knowledge of large-scale implementation challenges is remarkable. Morgrim's expression shifted slightly, surprise replacing wariness. It was rare for anyone to praise the Queen's technical competence rather than her political position. Indeed, Her Majesty has always shown aptitude for complex systems analysis. He paused. Your Majesty, the Council of Houses has requested a meeting this afternoon regarding the Valyrian proposal. Zephyr's scales darkened slightly, a subtle shift that Jasper was beginning to recognize as irritation. Inform the Council that I will address Duke Valyrian's proposal when I deem appropriate. My schedule today is fully committed to educational pursuits. Of course, Your Majesty. After Morgrim and the security detail moved on, Jasper looked at Zephyra with curiosity. The Valyrian proposal. That wouldn't happen to involve the charming gentleman from last night, would it? Duke Valyrian has offered a formal alliance through marriage. The Council considers it politically advantageous. Her tone suggested she found the prospect about as appealing as toxic waste disposal. And you consider it what? Exactly. A diplomatic solution that treats me as a trade commodity rather than a person. She maneuvered her throne toward a quieter area of the hall, away from the crowds. Marriage alliances are traditional in dragon politics, but traditionally, both parties have some say in the arrangement. Jasper followed her to a small seating area overlooking the expo floor. What happens if you refuse? The council can override my decision if they believe it serves the greater good of the dominions. Ancient law designed to prevent monarchs from making purely selfish choices. She watched the crowds moving below them. The irony is that refusing Valerian probably is the selfish choice. His house controls significant military resources that could secure our borders for generations, at the cost of your happiness. Queens aren't supposed to prioritize personal happiness over political necessity. Jasper was quiet for a moment, processing this. That seems like a fundamental design flaw in the system. Explain. Well, you're the decision maker for 15 star systems, right? The person responsible for millions of lives and countless complex choices. If the system forces you into personal situations that make you miserable, how does that serve anyone? Unhappy leaders make worse decisions. It's basic human psychology. Probably works the same for dragons. Zephyra stared at him. You just applied engineering principles to royal marriage politics. Did it work? Disturbingly well, actually. She smiled, the first genuine expression of amusement she'd shown since Morgrim's arrival. Though I doubt the council would appreciate the comparison. They spent the afternoon exploring more displays, their conversation ranging from technology to politics to personal stories. Jasper learned that Zephyra had studied engineering before her coronation, abandoning her plans for advanced degrees when duty called. Zephyra discovered that Jasper had turned down lucrative corporate positions to work on projects that improved accessibility and quality of life for disabled individuals. Why Europa Station? She asked as they shared an early dinner in the exposition's food court. 6 months in the outer system seems like professional exile. It's important work. The terraforming project there will eventually support millions of colonists. Without proper integration systems, the whole thing fails. He picked at his synthesized chicken, not meeting her eyes. Also, the isolation makes things simpler. Simpler how? No expectations. No disappointing anyone. Just me and the machines, working on clearly defined problems with measurable solutions. Zephyr recognized the tone, the careful distance from emotional complexity. Is that what you want? Simplicity? I thought it was. Jasper looked at her directly. Yesterday, I was certain it was the right choice. Today, I'm less sure. What changed between yesterday and today? I met a dragon queen who doesn't fit any of my assumptions about royalty, politics, or what I thought I wanted from life. The words hung between them, more honest than either had intended. The food court bustled around them, families and couples and friends going about their normal lives while two very different people sat in the middle of extraordinary circumstances neither quite knew how to navigate. Jasper. Zephyra began carefully. In 3 weeks, the council meets to finalize the Valerian engagement. If I don't provide an alternative by then, they'll consider the marriage politically necessary. 3 weeks. He did mental calculations. I'll barely be settled on Europa by then. Yes, they finished dinner in contemplative silence, both aware of timing and obligations, pulling them in different directions. As evening approached, they made their way back toward the city center, where Jasper needed to collect his things for departure. At the transport hub, surrounded by travelers and cargo drones and the controlled chaos of interstellar commerce, they faced their goodbye. Jasper's shuttle to Europa Station would depart in 2 hours. This was, Zephyra said, searching for appropriate words, educational. Very educational, Jasper agreed. I learned more about dragon politics and royal responsibilities than I expected. And I learned more about biomechanical engineering and why constraints sometimes produce better solutions than unlimited resources. They looked at each other, two people who had found an unexpected connection at the worst possible timing. Jasper, would you be interested in maintaining correspondence? Purely professional, of course. I'm considering implementing new accessibility technologies across the dominions, and your expertise could be valuable. Professional correspondence, Jasper said slowly. Discussing technical specifications and implementation challenges. Exactly. Nothing personal or romantic. Simply technical consultation via subspace. Communication. That sounds completely professional, and not at all like an excuse to stay in contact. Good, because that's exactly what it is. They exchange secure communication codes with the same careful casualness they'd used the night before. As Jasper's boarding call echoed through the terminal, they shook hands formally, the gesture feeling both too much and not nearly enough. Safe travels, Jasper Chen. Good luck with your counsel, Queen Zephyra. He walked toward the departure gate without looking back, knowing that if he did, he might not be able to leave at all. Zephyra watched until he disappeared into the boarding tunnel, then directed her throne toward the palace where Advisor Morgrim was undoubtedly waiting with council reports and marriage proposals. Neither of them suspected that their professional correspondence would soon become the foundation for something that would challenge everything. They thought they knew about duty, love, and the courage required to choose happiness over obligation. The first message arrived 12 hours later, marked technical consultation and containing detailed schematics that somehow felt like love letters, written in the language of engineering. The council chamber of the Crystal Dominions had been designed to intimidate. Soaring crystalline walls amplified every sound, while holographic displays showed the 15 star systems under Queen Zephyra's rule. Today, those same walls felt like a prison as 12 advisors, various nobles, and Duke Valerian himself gathered for what everyone knew would be the final discussion about the royal marriage. Zephyra entered the chamber with absolute composure, her mobility throne configured in its most formal setting. The biocrystalline panels now displayed the deep royal purple of the Crystal Dominions, while her crown, a delicate lattice of living crystal that interfaced directly with her neural pathways, pulsed with soft light that indicated her elevated stress levels to anyone who knew how to read the signals. 3 weeks of subspace messages with Jasper had changed everything. What had started as technical consultations about accessibility improvements had evolved into daily conversations about engineering challenges, political philosophy, personal fears, and shared dreams. She had learned about his childhood on Earth's agricultural colonies, his struggle with social anxiety, and his genuine passion for creating technology that improved lives. He had learned about her pre-coronation studies, her frustration with traditional dragon politics, and her secret dream of creating truly inclusive societies across her domains. More importantly, she had realized that happiness was not a luxury she had to sacrifice for duty. It was a requirement for being the leader people needed. Your Majesty, Advisor Morgrim began formally, Duke Valerian has graciously agreed to present his final proposal for alliance through marriage. Duke Valerian rose, his golden scales catching the chamber's artificial light. He had prepared an elaborate presentation, complete with holographic displays showing military assets, trade projections, and genetic compatibility analyses. For 20 minutes, he outlined the political and economic advantages of their union, the security it would bring to the Crystal Dominions, and the respect it would earn from other dragon houses. Furthermore, Duke Valerian concluded, House Valerian's medical facilities have developed new treatments that might address your condition. Our scientists believe there's a reasonable chance of restoring functionality to your lower extremities. The chamber fell silent. Several advisors leaned forward with interest. This was new information, and potentially game-changing from a political perspective. Duke Valerian, Zephyr said calmly, did you just offer to fix me as part of your marriage proposal? Your Majesty, I offered hope for a more complete life. I see. Zephyr's throne rose to its maximum height, bringing her eye level with the standing Duke. And what if these experimental treatments fail? What if I remain exactly as I am today? Duke Valerian hesitated, just long enough to reveal his true feelings. Well, naturally, we would hope for success. But should the treatments prove ineffective, accommodations have been made. Accommodations? The palace has been modified for accessibility. You would have everything you need. Everything except respect. Everything except the assumption that I am already complete. Zephyr's voice carried the kind of authority that had once ended wars. Duke Valerian, your proposal treats my mobility throne as a problem to be solved, rather than recognizing it as part of who I am. You see weakness where I see adaptation, limitation where I see innovation. Advisor Morgrim cleared his throat diplomatically. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider the broader implications for the Dominions. House Valerian's military support could secure our borders for generations. At what cost, Advisor Morgrim? My personal happiness? My dignity? My right to choose a partner who sees me as worthy without modification? Your Majesty, another advisor interjected, surely you understand that royal marriages have always been about political alliance rather than personal preference. Have they? Zephyr turned to address the full chamber. When my great-grandmother, Queen Azura, married King Theron of the Sapphire Worlds, was that purely political? Or did she choose a partner who shared her vision for interspecies cooperation and technological advancement? When my grandfather allied with the Jade Consortium, did he not choose a consort who complemented his strengths and supported his goals? The chamber stirred uneasily. Zephyr was reframing centuries of royal precedent, and everyone present knew it. What I am hearing, she continued, is that because I use a mobility throne, I should accept whatever alliance is offered, grateful that anyone would marry a damaged queen. That assumption insults not only me, but every citizen of our domains who lives with disability. How can I rule inclusively if I allow my own treatment to perpetuate the idea that physical difference equals reduced worth? Duke Valerian's wings flared slightly. Your Majesty, you mischaracterize my intentions. I offer genuine partnership. You offer management of a political asset. There is a difference. The massive chamber doors opened with a resonant chime, interrupting the debate. Everyone turned to see Jasper Chen walking purposefully down the central aisle, wearing his best formal attire and looking absolutely terrified, but determined. Mr. Chen, Advisor Morgrim said with surprise, you are supposed to be on Europa Station. I was, Jasper replied, his voice carrying clearly in the acoustically perfect chamber. I finished the integration project early and requested immediate reassignment. Duke Valerian looked from Jasper to Zephyr with growing understanding and displeasure. Who is this human, and why is he interrupting matters of state? I am someone who has a proposal of my own, Jasper said, walking directly to Zephyr's throne and kneeling beside it in the formal position of petition. Your Majesty, I request permission to address the council. Zephyr felt her heart's racing. Whatever Jasper was planning, he was taking enormous risks. Interrupting a royal council meeting could be considered treason in some interpretations of ancient law. Permission granted, she said formally, though her amber eyes conveyed both concern and curiosity. Jasper stood, turning to face the assembled nobles and advisors. Honored Council, I am Jasper Chen, Systems Engineer and Specialist in Biomechanical Integration. I come before you today to offer an alternative proposal for Royal Alliance. Human offers alliance terms to the Crystal Dominions? Duke Valerian laughed, a sound echoing harshly through the chamber. What could you possibly offer that would compare to House Valerian's resources? Innovation, Jasper replied simply. I offer technological advancement that will transform the lives of every citizen in the Crystal Dominions, regardless of physical capability or species origin. He activated a holographic projector, displaying schematics that made several advisors gasp with recognition. The designs showed biomechanical integration, systems far more advanced than anything currently in use across the 15-star systems. These are neural interface protocols that I developed during my correspondence with Queen Zephyra, Jasper explained, his nervousness fading as he entered his area of expertise. They represent a complete revolution in assistive technology, creating seamless integration between biological systems and mechanical aids for any species, any type of physical difference. The holographic displays showed mobility thrones that responded to thought alone, prosthetic limbs with full sensory feedback, communication devices for those with speech difficulties, and dozens of other applications. Furthermore, Jasper continued, I propose establishing the Crystal Dominions as the galaxy's leading center for inclusive technology development. This would create new industries, attract the best minds from dozens of worlds, and position your domains as the most advanced civilization in known space. Advisor Morgrim studied the displays with growing interest. Mr. Chen, these designs are remarkable, but what do you personally bring to such an alliance? House Valerian offers military might and established political connections. I offer something different, Jasper said, then turned to look directly at Zephyra. I offer love without conditions, partnership without hierarchy. I see Queen Zephyra not as someone who needs fixing, but as someone who has already solved problems the rest of us are still struggling with. Her intelligence, her innovation, her strength in adapting to challenges, these are exactly the qualities our galaxy needs in its leaders. Duke Valerian stepped forward aggressively. This is absurd. A human cannot marry dragon royalty. The genetic incompatibility alone makes it impossible to produce heirs. Duke Valerian, Zephyra said coolly, dragon reproduction has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with magical energy compatibility. Furthermore, the assumption that my only value as a queen lies in producing offspring is both scientifically ignorant and personally insulting. Your Majesty, Morgan said carefully, while Mr. Chun's technological proposals are intriguing, the legal precedents for interspecies royal marriage are complex. Then we change the legal precedents, Zephyra replied. Ancient laws were written for ancient problems. We face new challenges that require new solutions. She directed her throne to rise, commanding the attention of everyone present. Council members, I have spent 3 weeks corresponding with Jasper Chen about technological implementations across our domains. His insights have already improved efficiency in 6-star systems. His designs for inclusive infrastructure will benefit millions of our citizens. But more than that, she continued, he has shown me what partnership truly means. Not someone who wants to change me or manage me or accommodate me, but someone who sees my current capabilities as valuable and wants to build something greater. Together, Jasper took a step closer to her throne. Zephyra, I don't know anything about royal protocol or political alliance. I can't offer armies or trade routes or centuries of noble lineage. But I can offer you my complete respect, my genuine partnership, and a lifetime of seeing you first and everything else second. The council must vote, Advisor Morgrim said formally, though his tone suggested he already knew which way the discussion was heading. The vote was closer than Zephyra had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. 8 in favor, 4 opposed. Duke Valerian left immediately, muttering about unprecedented breaks with tradition and the inevitable consequences of such radical decisions. 6 months later, the wedding took place not in the formal throne room, but on the same observation deck where Jasper and Zephyra had shared their first non-date. The ceremony blended human and dragon traditions, officiated by both species representatives, witnessed by friends, advisors, and citizens from across the 15 star systems. Zephyra wore a gown that incorporated bioluminescent fibers, making her appear to glow with inner light. Her mobility throne had been specially configured for the occasion, its crystalline panels displaying flowing patterns that matched her dress. Jasper wore traditional dragon ceremonial colors adapted for human proportions, looking nervous but radiant with happiness. "You realize," Zephyr murmured as they exchanged vows, "our first meeting was a complete disaster." "The worst," Jasper agreed quietly. "Both of us stood up by people who couldn't see what they were missing. And yet, here we are. Here we are." They kissed as 3 moons rose over Neo Angeles, surrounded by friends who had learned that love could indeed conquer politics, tradition, and every practical objection anyone could raise. 2 years later, the Crystal Dominions had become the galaxy's acknowledged leader in inclusive technology. The Accessibility Innovation Centers established in Jasper's honor operated on 12 worlds, improving life for millions of beings across hundreds of species. Queen Zephyra's approval ratings had reached historical highs, while applications for citizenship in the Crystal Dominions increased by 300%. Duke Valerian, meanwhile, had married a duchess from the Outer Rim, who reportedly found him as insufferable as everyone else did, though their political alliance had proven mutually beneficial despite their personal incompatibility. "Any regrets?" Jasper asked one evening as they stood on their private balcony, watching the city lights twinkle below. "Only one," Zephyr replied, her throne humming softly beside him as its new neural interfaces allowed her to feel the evening breeze as if through her own skin. "What's that?" "I should have ordered something more expensive that first night. If I was going to have a terrible date, I might as well have gotten a good meal out of it." Jasper laughed, the sound carrying across the balcony into the warm night air. "I'll make it up to you. Dinner tomorrow at the Crystal Spire, anywhere you want. The same restaurant where we met. It's our place now." Where 2 people who thought they were failures in romance discovered they were just waiting for each other. And it was true. Their love story had begun with mutual disappointment and blossomed into something that changed not just their lives, but the lives of countless others across the galaxy. They had proved that sometimes the worst disasters became the foundation for the most beautiful triumphs, and that love without conditions could indeed move worlds. In the end, the blind date everyone had mocked had become the Dragon Queen's most unexpected miracle, transforming 2 lonely people into partners who changed the galaxy simply by refusing to accept that different meant less than whole.